I'm eager to cover today's video with you for our comment deep dive because it's a comment that I see a lot, and not just in reply on my channel, but it is an argument that I see put forward by many believers about how they just know there's something going on. And then that something going on leads all the way to, of course, their particular God and conceptualization of their particular God and holy book. But I think that the take I'm going to read for you today covers a lot of the ground that I would want to cover in addressing this issue at large. You'll see what I mean here. So I'll just read the comment. If the Bible isn't true, why does worldwide Satan worship exist? If you were a Christian deep in the church like you said you were, I'm sure you can see the demonic influence in a lot of stuff around us. Explain that. That must be a clear proof of God. Why would people go to that extent with symbolism if there wasn't power behind it? How about people who practice like witchcraft and conjure up demons? Is that all in their heads? Yeah, but I'm going to give you a better answer than that. We're going to go through each of these points that you have made. After all, it is comment deep dive. And I think there's just a lot of incorrect thinking going on here. And I'm not trying to shame you for it. I understand to a believer, especially if you consider the recent video I did where many believers associate any concept of other gods to just be demons so that their worldview of a monotheistic deity can still exist while explaining kind of what you're alluding to here. If so many people have worshipped these other things, demons, Satan, witchcraft, etc., doesn't that mean to some extent then they're real? And if that's real, then God is real. If God is real, the Bible's real. And again, always getting to your particular fancy. So I do get it, but it is just riddled with error. The first one being the improper connection that belief must equal reality. No, belief does not equal reality. It's a category mistake. And again, one that a Christian ideally would be able to see as soon as I bring up Zeus or Odin or Hinduism. But if you take the excuse that, yeah, all those people really did believe in those things, that didn't make their belief real because what those things really were just demons. But that's my point, Brandon. Demons be everywhere, therefore God is real. And again, you still don't get to make this kind of leap. You might be choosing to baselessly claim that all other demons and dark magic, etc., fall under the purview of Yahweh and his order, but first of all, we know that many of these beliefs came long before Yahweh ever showed up on the scene. And they came with their own good guys and bad guys, spirits of light and spirits of darkness, spirits that can possess you, spirits that torment you. So I think it says more about mankind as a species that when we invent religion, mythology, folklore, whatever you want to call it, we represent good and bad. And some people are always going to be drawn to the bad, whether it is satirically or symbolically, or because it's a taboo, because it's interesting, or because they're going through an emo stage. It doesn't really matter. To wrap up this first section, the point is simple. Belief does not equal reality. All these things were separated. You've tried to put them in a same category. If you wouldn't accept other people's sincere belief equaling the truth of their claims, then we can't do the same for you. But let's break this down further. You use terms like worldwide Satan worship. I think most people, especially Christians, drastically misunderstand this. The majority, by far, is symbolic, which you covered and we'll get to. It is not literal. Groups like the Church of Satan do not believe in a literal Satan. It takes 1 minute of investigation to find that out, instead of to continue to pretend that this group has secret ceremonies where they bow down and truly worship Satan. They use Satan as a symbol of rebellion, of individualism, of anti-authoritarianism. It's much closer to philosophy than it is anywhere near religion. But it seems you're still reeling from the panic narrative that again comes from history, but not reality. I've talked a few times on the channel about the satanic panic, mainly in the 80s and 90s, but there's been other iterations of it, and sometimes it changes, and in different parts of the world at different times, but still always kind of the same base. A massive cultural fear of satanic cults, claims of ritual abuse and conspiracies, these underground networks that are taking your children and killing your cats and performing weird rituals out in the middle of a field on a full moon. But this is largely culturally inherited fear and nothing more. I say largely because always there are going to be fringe groups that exist, though that also proves nothing. But yes, do some people use dark symbolism? Do some people perform rituals? Sure. Do some people believe in literal demons, even if they don't associate themselves with being Christian? And by the way, we're using the term demons really loosely here. When you have people from Muslim countries that are talking about demons and they're thinking more of jinn, or people that believe in voodoo and they're talking about dark arts and dark spirits, they're not picturing Lucifer and his fallen angels. There's Norse demons and Greek demons and Hindu demons and all kinds of dark spirits that go by different names in different cultures and different religions and different mythologies. So again, part of the problem here is you grouping anything that you see as demonic as all the same and all anti-God and all being taken literal by everyone who talks about it all the time. Your case is based off so very, very little. But humans have always done this across cultures. It doesn't prove that any of those beliefs were real. It proves that humans are drawn to the taboo, to the concept of power and identity and meaning. So moving on to your symbolic side of it, because you do try to caveat that, you say, if people go that far, there must be real power behind it. Again, that is just an assertion that's not backed up at all. In fact, we see a lot of evidence against that. It ignores basic human psychology. Symbolism does create perceived power. Symbols can trigger emotion, create identity, reinforce certain beliefs. It's the same mechanism behind national flags, political imagery, religious icons of even other religions that you don't believe are real. Simply them having those icons, that symbolism, who would go through all of that if it's not real? It's powerful because it's people getting their identities. It's how people connect. It's a shared cause. It's comforting, or it's interesting, or it's taboo, or it's intriguing. And that's why satanic or demonic or darker spirits, that kind of imagery is effective, because it is culturally defined as forbidden and powerful. And our brains like that. If something is dangerous, it usually means it's important. And if something is forbidden or taboo, it usually means it's significant. So the darker the symbol, the more powerful it is. Not in a supernatural sense, in a psychological sense. That's why you'll see a lot of people that have deconverted kind of play with that sometimes, or you'll see a lot of younger people play with that sometimes, even Christians when they're younger, as kind of this rejection phase or taboo phase. For people rejecting authority or for people leaving religion, Satan becomes a counter symbol. Again, that doesn't make him real. It makes the image of him useful. A way to say, I reject your system. And again, the vast majority of all of this is symbolic, not literal. Not that there can be a literal worshiping of Satan because he doesn't exist, but insofar as people's motives or what they're expecting out of it. No demons required here. And by the way, a lot of the examples I get, you didn't say anything like this specifically, is how, well, why would Hollywood be so obsessed with Satan? Why would the music industry always have satanic imagery? First of all, they're not obsessed, and it doesn't always. Some artists sometimes absolutely do that. And the reason it seems like it's so many or so often is because Christian media can't stand it, and they plaster it everywhere when someone wears devil horns in a performance, or when a pentagram is on stage, or when the next scary movie about possession comes out. Don't you see the Hollywood elite? All of these conspiracy theories start to come out, And really, it's not that popular, not that common. It just gets sensationalized when it does happen. And the reason it does happen is because it's provocative. Oh no, you mean entertainers like to be provocative sometimes? The thing is, you just don't care, bat an eye, notice, or even observe when they do it with any other kind of imagery because it doesn't fit your agenda or your narrative. It's selection bias, it's confirmation bias, it's all kinds of fallacious. Then you mention witchcraft and conjuring demons. So let's talk about people that perform rituals because, believe it or not, people have been believing in spirits long before your God, long before you were alive, to claim it all as under the umbrella of your religion. So when someone is dealing with some shaman in Africa performing some kind of witchcraft for a healing ceremony, you don't get to claim that as, oh, see, demon worship, my God's real. That's an insane connection. And by the way, when someone has an expectation of something, and then especially if it's mixed with like a ritual, you can get a real experience. It's not a real supernatural experience. It's a real psychological experience. It happens to Christians every Sunday when they are in worship with the expectation that they are communing with the divine. They enter the ritual, the chanting with other people. They get the goosebumps. They're reinforced, being told it's the power of the Holy Spirit. And they say, see, it works. Proof of God, proof that a spirit came upon us. It's possession. You just consider it the good kind. The reality there is we know psychologically and from neuroscience what is going on in your brain when expectation plus ritual equals experience. And that's what's happening in these other cultures that are taking their rituals seriously as well. People can enter altered states of consciousness. That's not supernatural. Meditation, hypnosis, trance, to a degree, these things are very real in our brains. They can produce voices and visions and a sense of presence and emotional intensity and physical signs as well. That's not manifestation. It's your brain and body having a reaction. They are indeed real experiences, but that doesn't mean real entities. I'll list some of the psychological mechanisms at play here. The first one is suggestion. If you're expecting a demon and you get a funny feeling, then you interpret that sensation as demonic. Your brain has been primed. We've talked about pattern recognition a lot. Our brains don't like randomness, so we try to connect things that don't need to be connected or don't even connect very well. And I gave you an example of how far stretched you've already done that in this comment. There's disassociation, the feeling like something external is present. Again, good or bad spirits that people will inject there, which leads to agency detection. Humans, because of the fact that we are this species, over-detect other beings around us. It goes back to survival traits in our evolution. It is always safer to see the tiger in the illusion of grass than assume there's no tiger there. And this maps on with our spiritual expectations and then thus claimed experiences. That's why people across cultures experience ghosts, demons, guardian angels, ancestors watching over you. Same brain, different interpretations or language being used to map on those psychological experiences. And we know that these experiences are filtered through culture and not reality because of how different they come across and at what times they crop up in what part of the world when. It is amazing for a Christian to claim, yeah, no, all from the same source. When in shamanism, we're talking about animal spirit. In Hinduism, we're talking about devas and asuras. In voodoo, we're talking about Iwa possession. Like, you don't get all of these things to exist at the same time and be literally true in the same way. It just doesn't work. Supernaturally, that is. It does strongly suggest, once again, that these experiences are filtered by culture and expectation. For the sake of consistency, just try applying your own argument anywhere else. If you say, hey, look, there's Satan worship. Therefore, Satan must be real, and it must be the Satan from the Bible. And therefore, demons must be Christian demons. And look, there's other spiritual power out there, but I'm not going to attribute it to the sources that the people who are claiming it attribute it to. I'll still claim the power, but I'll attribute it back to my particular God. And thus, I have now validated Christianity. But no, you haven't. And not only is it unfair for you to make the claims you did, but they were entirely circular. It's like me saying, oh, people believed in Thor. I have evidence of that. Therefore, Thor is real. Therefore, Norse mythology is true. You would not accept that, so we're not going to accept this. It's not a valid argument. But as usual, I fear I'm just beating a dead horse. I think we can end by just saying this. Humans don't need something to be real in order for them to believe in it, fear it, build rituals around it, or even dedicate their lives to it, even die for it. We've done all of those things for thousands of gods and spirits and forces and demons and whatever else you want to call them throughout all of recorded history, all over the world. So no, Satan worship does not prove Christianity. It proves humans are incredibly good at creating meaning and creating fear and our identity around ideas that don't have to be tethered to reality at all. If what you claim were true, every single religion that has ever been would equally be true at the same time, which doesn't work. I don't see evidence of demons. I see evidence of a very powerful psychological mind. And I have a lot more facts and data and research and logic on my side than your superstition. That's it for today. Thank you for being here. We've been doing these comment deep dives for a long time now, and sometimes they are the lowest viewed and sometimes they are the most viewed. It must come down to the particular topic. I think what I'd like to start doing, and it's always dumb for me to make announcements at the end of the video because there's like 10 of you left right now, but I think I would like for you guys, if you're in the comments and you see a comment that looks interesting that you want to see covered on these Thursday episodes, would you ping me about that? It would really help me out in my time and research instead of having to find the one I want to cover each week. And that was done for me this week by Blue Star Galaxy. So thank you for your help in pulling this comment for me. But that's it. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you Sunday with a new episode. And until then, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tiers of support: my Iconoclast, Anne, Boris, Chris, Greysteel, Gnarlywill, Grant, GVI, Jimmy, Joe, Kitboga, Matthew, Perry, and Shawn; my Humanist heroes: Chris, Craig, James, Jarrod, Kristi; my Atheist advocates: Aquitar, Caleb, Dakota, Dan, Drew, Jeff, Jeffrey, Jeremy, Jugs, Julie, Malcom, Paul, Sparky, and Thomas; as well as all of my secular scholar patrons. Your support is the entire reason I can do this. If you've considered supporting this channel, please join these fine people today.